ESV. Give the king your justice, O God,
Yeah.
and righteousness to the royal son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice.
Yeah.
Let the mountains bear prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness.
Yeah.
May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the children of the needy, and crush the oppressor.
Okay.
May they fear you while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations.
Right.
May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days, may the righteous flourish and peace abound till the moon be no more.
Yeah.
May he have dominion from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. May desert tribes bow down before him, and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the coastlands render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations serve him, for he delivers the needy when he calls.
Praise the Lord.
Poor and him who has no helper.
Wow.
He has pity on the weak and the needy and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence, he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight. Long may he live. May gold of Sheba be given to him. May prayer be made for him continually, and blessings invoked for him all day long. May they bear abundance of grain in the land. On the tops of the mountains may it wave. May its fruit be like Lebanon, and may people blossom in the cities like the grass of the field. May his name endure forever, his fame continue as long as the sun. May people be blessed in him. All nations call him blessed. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who alone does wondrous things. Blessed be his glorious name forever. May the whole earth be filled with his glory. Amen and amen.
Amen.
The prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are ended. Amen. Amen. My title, and you don't have to look at the sermon notes, the handout. Just follow me in the scripture, because I looked at the handout and it's kind of hard to follow. There's a lot of writing in there. So I'll probably skip some of that. But anyway, the title of my sermon is The Perfect King. And it did basically took that right out of one of the commentators, because that's who he's talking about. This king is a perfect king. I was surprised to find out that the New Testament doesn't actually give this a messianic use this as a messianic song. Doesn't use this song, but I believe it to be messianic. And if you come on, my computer is really slow this morning. Come on. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do is we believe, we read this song. We can see that as reading it, we wouldn't argue that it's not messianic in reading it for various reasons we're going to take a look at. But what I want us to do is to be able to prove that it's messianic. Y'all follow me so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how are we going to do that? There's external proof and there's internal proof.
Okay.
And so my title is The Perfect King. How long shall you reign?
Okay.
And that'll make sense as we go along. So one of the external things I want to bring up really quick, because it's not a lot of it, so I'm going to bring that up quick, but is the fact that if you, and you can do this later, if you take a look at Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 5, and you also look at Isaiah 60, chapter 60 through chapter 62, no doubt about it that those passages are messianic.
Right.
But if you consider those passages messianic, then you would have to consider this psalm messianic because it contains some of the same stuff.
Okay.
But not only that, the Targum, which is a rabbinic literature, they actually add Messiah to the king in verse 1.
All right.
So the rabbinic literature, the rabbis would have taught this as being a messianic song. Yeah. So when it says give the king, it would have said in the Targum, give the Messiah. Right. So that's some of the external stuff that says that this is a messianic song. And we're going to, of course, dive into the internal.
Okay.
So y'all ready?
Ready.
All right. So it says, verse 1, give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to the royal son. I forgot something. I got to go back. Pastor and I had a conversation this morning about the authorship. And usually authorship is, we don't want to put a lot of emphasis on authorship. We know that it's a psalm in the style of David. The title says of Solomon. But verse 20 says something different. And I just want to anticipate your confusion because verse 20 says the prayers of David, the son of David, are ended. And so, there's some options. Is this Solomon writing this? Or is this Solomon writing this about his son, Rehoboam?
Okay.
Or is it Solomon writing it about himself?
Okay.
Or is it David writing it about his son Solomon? Okay. Now, I tend to lean towards now Derek Kidner, a scholar actually of Psalm 72, he's a Psalm 72 scholar. He argues that that there's no strong evidence against Solomon being the author.
Okay.
And I wouldn't disagree with that, but I could say in the same note that I think that David, though, is the author. I'm going to tell you why I think he's the author.
Okay.
One is because, and I think they prayed this for Solomon.
Okay.
One of the reasons why is because if it's Solomon praying for Rehoboam, I say the prayer is a great prayer. It's something that's according to God's will. This prayer. And I just really don't see God not answering this.
Okay.
And if it's Rehoboam, God doesn't answer this prayer at all.
Okay.
He's a bad king.
Yeah, he's a bad king. He doesn't answer it at all.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the kingdom gets divided and stuff because of what Solomon did. We know that story.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Solomon does resemble some of these things that this psalmist is praying for.
Right.
It does. And so, and then some of the language that we're going to take a look at, like the language of the Davidic covenant.
Right.
That God promised David he would have a descendant on the throne forever and ever. So we're going to take a look at some of that. And I believe that it's David talking about Solomon because there's a semblance of some of this taking place. And like a lot of the Old Testament prophecies, there's a near future fulfillment and a further future fulfillment.
Right.
There's no near future fulfillment at all.
Okay.
But if it's Solomon, it is.
Okay.
Y'all following me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this perfect king, this petition is a petition of a high calling.
Okay.
That's the first point, y'all. That and it comes from verses 1 through 4. Verses 1 through 4. It's a high calling to royal righteousness. This office is the office of a very high calling. You say, well, why do you say that? Why do you say that? How come it's just not any old office? Here's the thing. We're met with a chiasm in the first two verses. It says, give the king your justice, O God, that's A, and your righteousness to the royal son, B. A, may he judge your people with righteousness, and B, and your poor with justice. So what's the point? What's the point? Justice and righteousness, right? Well, what makes it such a high calling? Whose justice is it? It's God's justice.
Right.
It's not any of justice. He's saying, give the king your justice.
Right.
This is a very high calling.
Right.
It's not any old justice.
Right.
I mean, he did justice, but God's justice, we're talking a whole new category.
Right.
I give an analogy in the handout and we'll talk about it. Analogy, let's say I'm a fairly good driver. I know my way around my car fairly well. I'm able to change my oil and stuff like that. I can't do no heavy lifting though. You know, my buddy across the street now, you know, he got one of them big Ford 150s. You know, he just, you know, he always has grease on his shirt. You know, he a real mechanic, right? He's a professional, right?
Okay.
He got like you know, he has. You go in his garage, he has these computers and all these tools and everything else, and I just got this little simple toolbox that my wife bought on sale from Home Depot for Christmas.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So here's the thing. This guy, he offers me his tools.
Okay.
He used. And guess what? I don't want to use them, y'all.
Okay.
I don't want to use them because it's too expensive if I break something.
Okay.
It's too costly.
Okay.
Too high for me. You get me?
Yes.
Yeah.
These are tools that the king wants his son to have.
Okay.
He wants his son to have these tools, but they're God's tools.
Right. Right.
Which makes it a very high calling.
Mm-hmm.
is higher, really, watch this, than a mere man can fulfill.
Okay.
That's what I want you to see. Watch this. Says, may he judge whose people? Your people. This
Uh-huh.
great responsibility, because the people are God's people, right?
Yeah.
And you see some semblance of this in Solomon's life, because in 1 Kings chapter 3,
Right.
Solomon is when he prays, he's asking God for wisdom to rule.
Right.
He's asking him for it.
Right.
They're God's people, and they're God's poor.
Right.
Now a little literary note that I want you to see is that this is synthetic parallelism also. You got to look for that when you're looking at poetic literature. So this is synthetic parallelism in that the second line is going to build off the first. So give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to the royal son.
Okay.
Right? He's like if you didn't get it, your righteousness to the royal son, then the exclamation mark is translated. It's translated, but there is excitement in the second line. There's a point being made in the second line. That's why the translators put the exclamation mark there. Second line in verse 2, right? Verse 2, first line. May he judge your people with righteousness, watch this, and your poor with justice. He's repeating it, but he's putting more emphasis on the second line. Verse 3, let the mountains bear prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness.
Right.
See that?
Yeah.
Verse 4, may he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the children of needy. Watch this. And crush the oppressor. That's what he wants them to do.
Okay.
Yes. It's a great calling and it's a great responsibility.
Right.
Y'all see that? This is a high calling.
Right.
It's a high calling also, though, in that you see in verse, I want you to look at the imagery in verses, we're going to look at the imagery in verses 5 through 7. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Computer is not responding. Okay.
You need me to share something, Rev?
No, Pastor. No, it's coming. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So not only is this a high calling, too high for a mere man.
Okay.
Too high for a mere man. It's also the imagery shows us in verses 5 through 7. In other places, we're going to look at 5 through 7 next. The imagery shows us that this reign of this king, where this reign of justice and righteousness, is endless.
Okay.
Look at verse 5 and the imagery. He says, may they fear you while the what? Sun endures.
Right.
And as long as the moon, throughout all generations. He gives us 3 images. The sun is constant. It's what we call a cosmic constant, right? A cosmic constant, right?
Right.
They do what they do every day in and day out. Watch this. Throughout all generations.
Right.
So this guy's reign is endless.
Yeah.
So you may see in some versions where in verse 5 where it says, may they fear you. In some versions say, may the king live forever.
Right.
Septuagint especially will translate it that way. May the king live forever, or may he live forever. But in the Hebrew, it says, really, when you translate, it says, may they fear you
Okay.
forever.
Okay.
May they fear you forever. Watch this. As long as the moon and throughout all generations, it's an endless reign.
Okay.
So watch this. These qualities of this perfect king is something that all kings want to display.
Yeah.
All kings, all ancient, Near Eastern ancient kings wanted to display that. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of reputations they wanted to have. They wanted their reign to be endless.
Right.
And after all, God had promised this to David.
Right.
So he says, and may he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. Here's the thing. During his reign, the earth flourishes.
Okay.
During his reign, things grow. During his reign, people flourish. During his reign. Look at verse 7. In his days, may the righteous flourish.
Right.
Peace abound.
Right.
There's that word. That's that peace abounds. The same word in verse 3 where it says, let the mountains bear prosperity. That's the same word. Shalom.
Right. All right.
May it bear peace. So it's not talking about everybody getting a Cadillac.
Right.
Because isn't that the mark of a great leader?
That's right.
Peace. Watch this. First Chronicles, you can go there, Larry, chapter 22, verse 9, says that during Solomon's reign, there was peace. There was peace. God had promised it. God said it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me read it to you. Behold, a son shall be born to you, talking to David, who shall be a man of rest. I will give him rest from all his surrounding enemies. For his name shall be called Solomon. And I will give peace and quiet to Israel in his days.
Yeah.
In his days. Well, watch this. This king, the peace is endless, not just in his days. There's an endless reign of peace.
Right.
But not only does a king want endless reign, a king also wants his boundaries wants his geographical boundaries to have no limits.
Right.
Doesn't want to have any limits. Look at verses 8 through 11. May he have dominion, watch this, from sea to sea, and from the river, where? To the ends of the earth.
Right.
Solomon had a big kingdom, right? There was no kingdom like his during his reign. We know that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the ends of the earth.
Right.
It says, verse 9, may desert tribes bow down before him, and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of, these are all boundaries, may the kings of Tarshish and of the coastlands, you see that? Render him tribute. Solomon will receive a lot of tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. They are going to bring him gifts.
Right.
May all kings fall down before him. Watch this. All nations serve him. That did not happen.
Okay.
This is for the this is a messianic thing.
Okay.
Where the reign, where there's no boundaries. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess.
Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
And then verses 12 through 14. This king, why? Why are you praying this for this king? Why? Because of heart, y'all. Because of his heart. He's a king that's full of compassion. Let's look at verses 12 through 14. For he delivers the needy when he calls. Remember that synthetic parallelism I talked about? The poor and him who has no helper.
Right.
This is the disenfranchised.
Right.
But watch this. I want to tell y'all something that's really crucial right here.
Okay.
It's the word when. For he delivers the needy when he calls. Listen,
all right.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. A lot of leaders deliver the needy, and they try to deliver the needy. And even as Christians, we should be like this, right?
Right.
We should have this kind of compassion and heart.
Right.
But here's the thing. A lot of times when the needy call, we don't do it when they need it.
Okay.
Throughout scripture, you hear, even in the gospel, Jesus talks about your neighbor coming to ask you and beg you for bread in the middle of the night. You don't want to send them away. He needs it now.
Yeah.
We start doing stuff like, we start saying stuff like let me pray about it.
Right.
My Lord.
Like it's really, look, watch this. It ain't compassion if you give it to me next week.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
I'm sorry. You can't be too important, King.
Okay. Yeah.
You do it with, watch this. When David heard about it, when Nathan came to David and he told him about his sin and everything, right? David was ready to kill that man. Right there, right there.
Right.
Because that man, he was supposed to take care of his own, and he's supposed to do it right then. Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is this. It's not compassion if they got to wait and they're desperate and they're hungry.
Right.
And you're trying to figure out, are they trying to con you? And all that kind of stuff. That's not Jesus's heart.
Yeah.
When blind Bartimaeus called him, he didn't heal him tomorrow.
Right.
Compassion. He has pity, verse 13, on the weak and the needy, and saves the lives of the needy. From what? From oppression and violence. Watch this. He redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight. Look. Let me tell you something about our ancestors and why we rallied around President Lincoln and President Kennedy and President Johnson. It wasn't because they weren't racist or didn't have any racist characteristics.
Right.
It was because they acted like they cared about our blood being shed.
Yeah. Right.
They cared about us. They showed some semblance of caring, of trying to redeem our lives.
That's right.
We saw hope, that they saw our lives as somewhat precious. And so our ancestors held on to this during those times when our men were being lynched.
Right. Right.
Or locked up because they didn't have an ID.
Right.
They wouldn't give you an ID because you couldn't read and write. So they locked you up and put you back on the same plantation, picking the same cotton.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
Compassionate leadership. Our blood was so precious in Jesus' sight that he shed his blood.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. That's right.
He's a compassionate king.
All right.
And Solomon shows some semblance of this.
Yeah.
However, I want to show you something. You don't have to turn there, but in 1 Kings chapter 12.
Okay.
This is during Rehoboam's reign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And during Rehoboam's reign.
Did you do it?
And people are coming to Rehoboam.
Okay.
Verse 4.
Verse 4.
1 Kings 12.
Can you read that for me?
Oh,
Mine's taking that forever to get there.
7. I ain't there either.
1 Kings 12, verse 4 or verse 1?
Yeah, you can start at verse 4, Pastor.
All right. Your father made your yoke hard, but now lighten the hard labor imposed by your father and his heavy yoke, which he put on us, and we will serve you.
Stop there. So you all hear that?
Uh-huh.
The people are talking to Rehoboam about Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Solomon's kingdom resembles this kingdom in a lot of ways. He resembles Christ in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But his being a type of Christ also allows him to be an anti-type of Christ. Here's what I'm talking about. You see where they said the yoke was heavy?
Mm-hmm.
What does Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 say? Can someone read that or know it from memory?
Yoke is easy.
Yeah. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. See that? So in a way, Solomon becomes a type of this type of Christ is an anti-type at the same time, because his yoke wasn't easy. It wasn't. But this king had this perfect king has the perfect compassion. But not only that, kings also want to be known for being a blessing.
Yeah.
Look at verses 15 through 17. Long may he live. There you go again. May gold of Sheba be given to him. He did receive that. May prayer be made for him continually, and blessings invoked for him all the day. I love this because David's praying that prayers be made for his son, right? But the perfect king won't need prayers made for him. The perfect king will have prayers made to him.
Yeah.
So we won't be praying for him. We pray to him. And he makes intercession for us.
Okay.
And so every king wants to have endless blessing and wants his people to love him. And verse 17, I'm going to go there first before I go back.
Okay.
Verse 17, may his name endure forever. His fame continue as long as the sun. There's that eternity again. May people be blessed in him. All nations call him blessed. That's Abrahamic.
Okay. Right.
And we associate that with the Messiah.
Right.
From Genesis chapter 12.
Right.
But looking at verse 16, it says, may there be abundance of grain in the land. On the tops of the mountains may it wave. May its fruit be like Lebanon. And may people blossom in the city like the grass of the field. Why? This rain, again, I said it before, is a rain where under this rain, the people flourish. The people have abundance of food. The people have, look, it's waving at them from the mountaintop. And its fruit be like Lebanon.
Yeah.
And the people blossom during this kingdom reign. So there's endless blessing, is what he's saying here.
Okay.
And every king wants that, but every king knows that endless blessing, I mean, it ends, doesn't it?
Right.
It ends. Hold on. I'm gonna go over a list of some kings. And you have to be patient with me, like I said, my computer's really slow.
Oh, okay.
But it's
I got a blank screen. I didn't know what was going on.
It's important that I go over this.
Okay.
So anybody remember King Cyrus? King Cyrus. Who's associated with King Cyrus?
Daniel.
Everybody remember? Daniel. Yeah. The exile, right?
Yeah.
King Darius.
Ezra, Nehemiah.
So I was going to bring them up and I was going to show what they were known for, but my computer is not allowing me to.
Can you just summarize it for us, Rev, if you remember? Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do it now. Sorry. Okay, so from 559 to 529, Cyrus reigned, BC. Cyrus reigned and formed and then ruled the Persian Empire, extending it, talking about the boundaries now, from Lydia through Babylonia.
Justin?
We lost Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. Well, while he's having some computer issues, there's some points that I want to underscore that he has brought up. And so we see that first of all, this whole thing is about justice, and particularly justice as it relates to the king. And in our context, it would be government, right? How we should expect government to run. Two things real quickly. Rev is right. It is a messianic psalm in the sense that it has this picture of kind of the ideal kingdom, right? Like this in its perfection. But the other side of that is that this was a psalm that was read to the king, whoever the king was, at their inauguration. It was an annual theme. So it was an expectation. So it was an ideal kingdom, but it had expectation for this is how earthly kings should reign. And I want to ask you all this question, because it says things like, if you go back, Psalm 72, verse 4, defend the cause of the poor of the people. Give deliverance to the children of the needy, crush the oppressor, that kind of stuff. And what are some of the causes of the poor? Now, if he's talking about Israel, we don't really know all of the details, but if part of their poverty is in relation to having an oppressor, right? Having in some cases you have this, like when Samson comes to into leadership, Samson and Gideon, the oppressors are there. They have foreign nations there. So let me ask y'all this question, and so it takes a little bit of thinking. When you have foreign government oppressing, the assumption is that they're oppressing you because you're different. That's the assumption of colonialism and foreign government. In that type of context, what would be some of the causes of the poor in a context like that? And you can really think about, colonial Africa. You can really think about areas of America. I think there's, I think it's a similar need, similar causes. What are some of the causes of the poor? You can just think about it in general too. What are some of the causes of the poor?
It's always oppressed.
Yeah.
Always. 7 days a week, you're always oppressed.
Yeah. So one of the things Laws talked about, and this is why and this is relevant to doing justice forever, right? And this ideal expectation. Since Law says one of the things about being oppressed and poverty, one of the causes is that you have a need for a break. You're always on. Right. And this is the issue sometimes when it comes to poverty, is that everything, right? We can talk about poverty and the need and how it creates problems for education, how it creates problems for healthcare, how it creates problems for living, how it creates problems for even aspirations, right? And dreams. Like you don't even sometimes one of the traps of that's why they call the hood the trap, right? Like you got trap music, and I'm in the trap and all that kind of stuff. It's because it's a cycle where it even messes with what you aspire for because you haven't been exposed to certain things. And so if the king, in this case, so we don't have kings. We have presidents, and what else do we have? That's not the only elected, that's not the only form of government. What other forms of government we have?
Mayors, governors,
senators, mayors, Congress folks. We have all of these people. Our government, police officers are part of government, right? And the government, according to Psalm 72, is to defend the cause of the poor. If you spoke that today, watch this. If I got up and said this, or somebody got up and said this and said, the government is to defend the cause of the poor. We say, oh, see, that's that liberal agenda. Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would say that's that liberalism. And but this is the foundation of how the expectation of our government. And it's interesting, and Rev brought this up when he took us to 1 Kings 12, right? So when Rehoboam gets in there, they say, you know what, your father, woo, he imposed a heavy yoke upon us. And which is, and I think Rev was right to bring that up, because in relation to when justice was in place, and what is justice in this case? It's not, yes, you have different ways of understanding justice. Justice in the sense of righting wrongs, which that's obviously in part of it, because he speaks of the oppressor, and defending the cause. So there's element of the poor's voice and their needs ought to be priority. But then there's also an element of when he says, let your justice reign, right? Like God's order, right? And God's shalom. He talks about we're talking about that, his peace, right? And so as a result of justice and fair treatment, treatment where people are valued, right? And not devalued because they're poor, but actually valued. Then there will be this shalom, and he speaks of it in very pictographic ways. The mountains will prosper, and the rivers, and it's the whole environment. Is speaking of that. And here's the thing. So the peace would come as a result of justice. And so in light of 1 Kings 12, when he said that the yoke was hard, it was different, which means which shows probably likely a contrast between how King Solomon started off his reign and how he ends. At the beginning, 1 Kings 3, right, there's peace, and he's got wisdom, and he's able to adjudicate people's court cases. At the end, they like, man, this was a hard reign, This is difficult. And so all of that, now watch this. I want to ask y'all a question. What could we do to make sure that our government, how could we help our government see that this is God's heart? And y'all do agree that this is God's heart, right? Like, how many times have we talked about justice just going through the book of John, the Psalms, right? How could we help our government see this? Because I would argue that if you go too hard with this is the problem with why they won't accept Bernie, right? If you go too hard with this, they see that's communism, and that ain't gonna work. I mean, Bernie speaks this type of stuff, even though he's an atheist. Interestingly, he speaks this type of stuff, and they we get scared. And I would argue, and I'll hand it back over to Rev in a minute. I would argue like that. So this idea, like the democracy, when we speak of democracy, freedom from all, equal for all, justice for all, like we speak in ideals. And the Black church, because of a theology that we had that's robust with Psalm 72, has always made America be accountable to its ideals, even when it has not lived up to it, even when we have not ourselves experienced it and enjoyed the rights of it, right? And so my question is, how could we, and I'm giving you a context, because my argument is, again, this psalm would have been written annually. It's been read to the king. And my argument is, if you go too hard on these type of things, people say that you're liberal, you're this, you're that. They reject it. Our culture has this proclivity to reject this type of language. And so my question is, how could the church, in a culture, in a context like that, how can we help our government see that this is God's heart? Any thoughts? Well, let me give you a couple, then I'm gonna turn it back over to Rev. Let me give you a couple.
Pastor, go ahead and wrap it out, because I got totally thrown off with all of that. So
Okay. Well, let me give you a couple. Let me give you a couple things for us to look at, and how to let folks know, and let the government know, and let all the folks like that this is God's heart.
yeah.
Well, one is just kind of what this one is just trying to do is to take how this psalm is used. This psalm is used annually, and I think it's interesting when we have our inauguration. When we have an inauguration of a president, or where we do every year when they do the State of the Union address, I think we won't talk about it being a Christian nation. I think this is something that it ought to be read every year, just like this would have been read every year. And I think it's something we ought to pray yearly. Whenever the State of the Union comes, I think churches ought to get together and pray this, because this is the ideal it's ideal, but that's not an excuse for not to try to live up to it. Are y'all with me?
I'm with you.
Yeah. So because we have these type of conversations like, oh, I mean, are we ever going to get rid of racism? No, we're not going to ever get rid of it in this world. But that's not an excuse not to live up for it, or try to do something about it, or try to defend the cause of the needy and the poor, right? So one thing is I think we can learn from them, and we make this. I mean, we do it as our church. We talk about this all the time. We're always praying about it. But I think as a nation, if we're gonna be serious, we need to start making this kind of something that at the beginning of the year, New Year's or something like this, where we are not just for us, but we're reminding the government, elected leaders, hey, we are expecting you as an elected official to defend the cause of the poor, even if I'm no longer part of that demographic. Amen, somebody.
Amen.
Because see what happened, and this is what has happened with the Black church community, or in some cases the Black community. And I don't think it was our fault. I don't think we didn't intend it. But it kind of happened, which is with the creation of the Black middle class, mm-hmm. and the disinvestment from our own, right? So we talk about white flight, but sometimes we don't talk about Black flight.
Right.
Where white flight, they left, and Black flight, we packed up and went on behind them. Right? Because of the issues sometimes that was starting to happen, and I understand it, right? I'm not saying that it's something wrong with what was it, the Jeffersons, right? Moving on up, right? Ain't nothing wrong with moving on up. But here's the point though. This is God's heart. So even if it is your demographic, even if or not, this is God's heart, and it ought to be ours. Guess, watch this. This wasn't the king's heart. I mean, watch this. This wasn't the king's situation. Yeah, the king is not poor.
Sure.
No.
Right? This is not his social location at all.
Yeah.
But it is an expectation that he would maintain the cause of the poor.
I saw some steps.
Y'all hear me? Y'all understanding that?
Yeah.
So this is important. That demographic, that difference, the king, and see what the challenges that we can get into. We can run into the trap where that ain't my situation no more. My kids are grown.
Right.
My kids got grandkids now, right? And so because it's not our context, the challenge and the temptation is to think that it is no longer, or not to fight for it as hard, or not to go as hard for it because it's not your context. Second thing, so the first thing is we need to have some type of annual reminder. And I think, shoot, it's just so bad now. That's why me and Rev, we ain't gonna let up on this justice stuff, right? Because it's just so pervasive. We need to have reminders, but we also, number two, with the reminders of the ideal, which of course the sub thing is, and this is part two, that we don't forsake the responsibility of the ideal simply because we are in a different social location.
Right.
Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Listen,
All right.
y'all, okay, yes, perhaps your children and grandchildren and whatever, but listen, Pastor Law's children are still coming up in this.
That's right. Yep.
Somebody else's, and so the king would be reminded that just because things are well for you, don't mean it's well for everybody. In fact, if you go back to, I don't have time to get into all of it, but if you go back to Deuteronomy 17, when he begins to lay out what is expected of the king, remember they wanted a king, and God says, no, y'all don't need a king. They said, well, we want a king. We won't like everybody else. Why we can't have a king? It's okay, fine. Okay, cool. There's gonna be some issues in First Samuel. He tells us the issues that's going to be of having a king, and he says like he's going to multiply your horses for himself. Yeah. He's going to multiply your houses and your wives for himself, right? Which is to say this. This is when you know when God's justice and God's form of government is not happening. You know, because those at the top get to enjoy all the benefits where the poor are exploited and taken advantage of. Yeah. It's at our expense. Thank you. Yeah. That's how you know that's how you know that it's not God's form. Yeah. But when God's justice is happening, it ain't just the folks at the top that's enjoying the prosperous mountain. Mm-hmm. Right, in the prosperous rivers, we all get to experience his shalom. Right. And so as a result, then we all have a responsibility. Yes, it may not, maybe I'm doing well, maybe I haven't, maybe I've created enough context and enough whatever where I can be protected from some of these social ills. Mm-hmm. Like your black millionaires, right? And your black billionaires, they have enough of the infrastructure that they can be protected from some of this stuff or a lot of this stuff. Right. Where you don't have to experience terrible education systems and healthcare systems and all this kind of stuff because you have enough money that you can partake of the infrastructure and enough resources that people can do your bidding. This is why, and I'm just going to say this, and I really got to let y'all go, but this is why LeBron James was getting some of the pushback from him. I ain't too much of a fan of him as a basketball player, but off the court, that's my dude. Because he's always pressing. When he starts talking about, police brutality, they wanted him, as they told him, to shut up and dribble. And because, and he says, no, I ain't gonna just shut up and dribble, right? Because, and then he will say things like, and other folks will say, that could have been me, that could have been folks, and folks will bring the argument of, well, what kind of injustice that you're getting? What kind of, there's always been a case where that's how racism has survived in this country. It has always allowed a few to prosper so that it can say, oh, we don't listen. Well, they did it. Why can't y'all do it? Right. See, the problem is that it's not that you have some people being able to have justice and that's not the problem. The problem is all of us should be able to have it. Of course, right. Not even we got to talk about biblically according to the ideal that you set up in the Constitution. Right. So we need to have reminders. We need to have this need for taking responsibility for this ideal, whether it is for me or not, whether I'm experiencing this or not. The king would have to make this an ideal for the kingdom and not just be, well, hey, I ain't never had that issue with the police, so I don't understand why. Of course you ain't never had the issue of the police, with that police. In your context, and you got security, and you got this, and you got that, or let's make it more practical. You live in a neighborhood where you don't have as much contact with the police.
Right.
See, that's the issue, right? The thing is that if you flood a neighborhood with a particular demographic, it doesn't matter what it is. Right now, we're talking about police. If you flood the neighborhood with that, of course, I'm going to have more contact. And if I have more contact, watch this. Take more contact, right? And then take your negative perspective of me. Right. My contact with you is going to be more negative just by virtue of where I live.
Right.
So if you live in a different neighborhood, I go to Wheaton. I'm back going full force. I'm trying to defend by December 3rd. So I have a deadline to meet by September 3rd. And so I'm back at Wheaton 5 days a week now. I don't ever see any police except for the one on campus. And I know them, we like, that's like my dude. We got like this relationship and stuff, yeah. Right? I don't ever see, but when I get up in the morning, when I go from the church, from my house to the church, I've seen 20. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, and this is a key point, the king, whoever it was, and I think Rev did an excellent job making an argument for David being Solomon. I think he made actually, but whoever it was, they would have to be reminded your location, just because things are well for you don't mean it's well for the kingdom.
Right.
And that's something the Old and the New Testament teaches us.
Yeah.
If any man talks about fellowship, Philippians 2, right? Not just concerned for our own interests, but the interests of others. Part of being in fellowship is that your interest is important to me, even when I'm not being negatively affected by it.
Right. Right.
That reminder, that corporate sense of responsibility, then gives way to the result in that we are working toward.
Right. Right.
All right. Thank you, Rev. I appreciate you, man.
Pastor, let me just piggyback off that for a quick minute.
Come on.
Because the second part of my title was "How long will you reign?" And the reason why I put that on there, you did an excellent. Thank you for summing that up for me and wrapping that up for me, because it is about those ideals and how we should, as Christians, be trying to bring about those ideals.
That's right.
The thing is just like the other kings, they had a temporary reign.
Come on.
We have what we do is, reason why we don't do that is because now we're reigning.
Oh Lord.
We're reigning. And so the question is, see, I can escape and build my own kingdom. I can get away from that and miss some of the ills that those social ills that my brothers and sisters are dealing with. I'm not in that location anymore, and I can escape from that. But the thing is that if he is truly reigning,
come on,
I will go back and do those things. And so the thing is the question is how long will you reign?
Yeah.
I mean, such and such reigned from this date to this date, and he died. And he reigned from this date and this date, and he died. How long will you reign? Watch this. When Pastor asked about the raising money for the door and the alarm system. Shoot, there was grunts and groans and things like that going on. And the reason why is because you reigning over your money.
My Lord.
How long you gonna reign over it?
My Lord.
How long you gonna reign over your time? How long you gonna reign over your boundaries?
Yeah. Come on, bring it on, Rev. Bring it on.
You know what I mean? How long you gonna reign over your, watch this, What kind of fruit is your family? Look, you the leader in your family. So your family, if God is reigning, your family should be fruitful.
Yeah.
Under God's kingdom. And it's not fruitful because you reigning.
Come on.
How long will you reign?
All right, Rev.
That's the question. So I'm not back there on Friday night with the peace campaign because I'm safe out here. So I'm not back there because I'm reigning now.
Yeah. Come on.
My life is not his. My life is his. When Christian fellowship's supposed to be out there, I should be out there.
That's right.
I'm not because I'm reigning. How long will you reign? That's all I want to leave. That's all I want.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, we keep peace campaign this Friday. Christian fellowship is up. We'll get information about that.